Hello and welcome to Market Watch for the end of the week of the 22nd of January 2018. Shortened week at that. Australia Day clearly means that no trade happening is probably why we've had a very limited amount of data in this country. There is a lot to talk about though with what's been going on in Davos, what's also been going on in Europe and the US, and probably want to concentrate particularly on the US dollar and where that's currently heading, what it means for us and what it means for them as well. So let's have a look at particularly Davos and the sort of the every year meet up and with central bankers and anybody else that wants to be there really these days. The main takeouts are several things. Growth is clearly on the table. Most of the fund managers looking outside the central banks, most of the fund managers see this year as a very, very exciting year for risk, and they're very much talking around the idea that things like equity markets particularly are likely to do quite well. Ray Dalio, the very famous sort of fund manager himself, had a very good quote this week that said, if you're in cash, you're probably crying into your cereal. Not certainly taking that as any more than just what that is, but it clearly does represent what most people believe, which is that growth this year is going to be probably the strongest it's been in the post-GFC world. And Europe is likely to be the one to sort of show that. And next week there is some really interesting data coming out of Europe, both their core inflation and also their fourth quarter GDP figures. Both of those figures may mean that Mario Draghi and co over there have to start thinking about moving away from their hugely unconventional monetary policy. The Bank of Japan this week said something not on the same level, but are certainly suggesting that they too might have to start thinking about it. Which brings me to the US dollar and what's going on in the US. The US at the moment's an amazing scenario with regards to traditional theory versus what's actually happening, bond market theory to what's actually happening. And then also the fact that you've got fiscal and monetary policy interacting in ways we've never seen before. And what I mean by that, the Treasury Department in Davos came out and said something they normally never say, which is that they never get involved in the currency, yet they have. They've actually turned around and said that the low currency is good for them. It's actually therefore improving their ability to trade. And that gets back to basically Trump's America First policy. It's not unsurprising in that respect, but it is very much a break with tradition to actually see them commenting that directly. And if you look at the dollar index and look at the basket, it's now at a 4-year low. It's fallen 13% since the peak in December 2016 and is still falling further on the back of the idea that this is a good thing for trade. It's also interesting because theory suggests it shouldn't do that. It actually shows that rates are moving are higher in the US. We know that they've done it 5 times in the last 3 years. You also got growth over there, probably outperforming the rest of the developed world, which should be an attractor for investors and into the currency, which means you sell out of your other currency, whether that's the euro, the Aussie, whatever it happens to be, and buy the US dollar. It's just a very interesting conundrum to see themselves in. Then you've got the bond market conundrum as well. And it's something that we've been speaking about for a little while, something that we've been concentrating on the economic view. And I recommend you have a look at that video that I had with Tony this week. It's all around the idea that is there now a disconnect between the tax payments that the US is collecting, whether or not the bond market is now getting to a point that it is actually showing risk in other areas are building, and that the market should wake up to this. It's all a very interesting question. That's why this week was quite an interesting week internationally, and certainly something that will be playing out throughout 2018.